The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
We're going to begin the webinar in about 1 minute. We're just going to give everyone a minute to jump on and dial in, and then we'll begin. All right, let's get started. Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for our Software and Automation webinar series. My name is Courtney, and I'm a lead customer account manager in the Northeastern region, and it's my pleasure to welcome you all today. Today, I'm going to be joined by Gabby Horst, SWK's Sales Director for Avid Exchange, as well as Rebecca Mergner, who's a Senior Systems Architect. Gabby will be walking you through the AP automation and explaining how streamlining your accounts payable process can significantly boost your bottom line value. And Rebecca is going to be showing us the actual integration between Avid Exchange and Acumatica and how that works. Just a few housekeeping items. All lines are going to be muted during the presentation. We will be recording and distribute the webinar to you within a few days for your convenience. And if anyone has any questions, please type in the chat box at the bottom of your GoToMeeting sidebar, and then hit the send question to staff at any time during the webinar. And without further ado, let's get started with our presentation.
Thank you, Courtney. So hi, everyone. My name is Gabby Horst. I'm SWK Sales Director. I primarily focus with the Avid Exchange product, and I have Rebecca Mergner on the line. She is our development manager. And today we're going to talk about time and costs associated to manual AP processing. What does it mean to automate? And then how could automation help improve the process? And then an overview of Avid Exchange. And as Courtney had mentioned, if there's any questions during the webinar, please feel free to drop them in the question box. So time and costs associated with manual AP process. So let's talk about the current state. Right now, as far as being manual, you're primarily probably receiving invoices by paper. Some people do receive them via email, but again, somebody will go in, they'll open the mail, they'll have to capture the data, either scanning it and making copies of it, even potentially handwriting on the invoices that are received. Then you have to code it to the ERP system. And depending on if you use purchase order or not, you may need to match those invoices to your purchase orders. And then as far as approvals go, we all know that, typically it either is, running down the hallway and getting an approval, or sometimes back and forth via email. And, that is just not an organized way to automate or to approve invoices. And not only that, if you think about reporting, the invoices may not be entered in a timely manner, and then you might not have accurate reporting, and there's a lot of liabilities there. So did you know, according to our partners, that the average cost of a single invoice is $11.57? And let's talk about how we came up with that number and what is associated with the AP process to come up with the invoice cost. So if you look at the time spent opening mail, routing it, potentially making copies, as I mentioned earlier, organizations will make multiple copies, store them either on-site or off-site, and there's costs associated with that. Answering inquiries about any missing information, talking about duplicate payments, and ultimately, an organization can miss discounts that might be received on that invoice. And that's how we came up with that total cost. And then if we look on the payment side, the average payment costs $7.78. And you're thinking, how could we possibly come up with that number? I'm doing ACH or I'm sending checks. If you just think about postage itself, that's 55 cents. The labor involved into processing that payment alone is how we average out that cost. So we think about why should you automate? Again, if you're getting multiple different payments that you're using, possibly wires or sending ACH, P cards, again, we can talk about the approval process. Then there's the reconciliation process, doing the bank processing, waiting for the checks to be cleared, and then following up and doing reporting. And then on average, an invoice can take up to 23 days to process. And if you think about it, most invoices are on 30-day net. So that's leaving you less than a week to make your payments for your invoices. So if we think about from the beginning of the conversation, we talked about receiving the invoice and then talking about the payment process and how that manual process looks like. We need to look at how can we make this better? How can we look at AP workflow? How can we digitalize these records and capture the information that you want to see? We don't want to worry about manual data entry or any errors that could be associated with it. Again, looking at the PO matching process, there can be errors there. And we want to look at real-time reporting. So what does it mean to automate? If you look at automating your solution, you want to look at a modern day finance department, and that's encompassing all areas. That's creating POs, matching POs, approving invoices, generating invoice record, getting them back to the ERP system, and then looking at a pay network. Avid Exchange works with a supplier chain of over 400,000 suppliers that they have in the network, and they offer multiple payment options, and they have dedicated vendor service team to help you with your payment process and to make sure that the payments are correctly sent to your bank, they're finalized, and that your suppliers are receiving the payments that they need. So if you look at this slide here, this is probably your current state. And not all these bubbles will apply to your organization, but for the most part, this is what we typically see in a traditional AP process. So you're receiving the invoices, again, opening them by mail, filing them, routing them via email for approvals, keying them into the ERP system by coding, and then once they're approved, then you'll have to go to budgeting, looking at, selecting how the vendor needs to be paid, and so forth. If you look at this slide now, this is life after with Avid Exchange. And, where you see the X's is where Avid Exchange can help you with automating your AP process. As I had mentioned earlier, we do have an Avid Exchange pay network that we work with over 400,000 vendors, and they submit payments by 3 ways, and that's virtual card, direct pay, and Avid Pay check. And then they do have a dedicated team that's going to work with your suppliers, talk to them about how they prefer to be paid. And again, that's via those 3 methods. And again, going through your vendors and talking to them, getting up-to-date terms on payments for them. And then they're going to make sure that the payments, again, are received. They're going to go ahead and check and validate that the payments have gone to the bank and that they came back and that they've been reconciled. And then there's going to be a follow-up just to make sure, your vendors are happy on the pay method on being with Avid Exchange. So looking at the AP automation process, what the current status might be and where it can go, let's go ahead and take a look at Avid Exchange. So I'm going to go ahead and switch over to the Avid Exchange portal. If you just give me one moment. And here you'll see the Avid Exchange portal. The nice thing about the portal, you can have multiple users within the Avid Exchange portal. You can have admin users, data entry, approvers that can go into here. There's no limitation on how many users you can have on the portal. So I'm going to log in. And usually you'll receive a notification once your invoice has been uploaded to the Avid Exchange portal, and getting the invoices over to Avid Exchange, you would either email them, scan them, or mail them in. And they have a service where your invoices have now been entered into the portal. They've been coded based on your GL codes and the companies and GL codes that you have associated with each vendor and product that you've purchased. Then a second set of eyes will look at the invoice and validate the information. There are exceptions, but for the most part, the data entry is correct. Once you receive that notification, you'll come to the portal and you'll see that you have invoices here that are available for approval. At a glance, if you know that you only have a handful of invoices that need to be approved, you can just click on this box and send them over for approval to your ERP system. You can also change the look of the screen. We have multiple different fields that we can categorize here at a glance on the home page. So I'm going to go ahead and click into the invoice here that was received. A digital image will be attached to the invoice card, all the information associated with it on the headers. Again, the company that's associated with, the vendor. Again, if you have a PO that you might want to have in here, any remarks, who will be approving it. And if you go down here, you have two options. You can either accept the codes that are here. You can change them. Let's say you had multiple companies in here. You can change multiple companies. Or if you wanted to change the GL code it's associated to, you can go ahead and do that here as well. These are the ones that have been predefined. But we're going to go ahead and put ours back. You can also allocate a percentage of the invoice to multiple companies here, and the dollar amount would just have to be equal. Or I have some companies, and you would do either or. If you're on a distribution here and you have codes that you've already associated with the invoice, or you can go down to line items and switch them per each company, per each code on each item on the invoice. But typically we see customers, they'll go through this process of adding just here on the company number and the GL code associated with it. Sometimes there might be a shipping package label that you want to scan in or upload to there, or any kind of notes that you might want. You can attach it here. Any comments that you want, this can be both internally and externally. Only thing is, if you do send it externally, it won't come back as if it was like an email box, but you can send information to a vendor if you say this information is not correct and you wanted to send it out of here saying, I need an updated amount on this invoice. There's also workflow. We have unlimited amounts of workflow that you can associate per invoice for approvals. And then all the folks that would be able to approve this will be registered here on the role based here. You can also come up here and you can do an ad hoc approver. Let's just say Charlotte was on vacation and you needed her to approve her invoice. But she was on vacation, so you could allocate it, let's just say, to someone like Rebecca, and then Rebecca would approve it. Any history associated with this invoice is going to be located here, and this is great for auditing purposes. And after 7 years, all of the invoices are going to be archived from the portal, but they will be available to you, but everything will stay on the portal for up to 7 years. So if I go back to my home screen, you can also switch, if you were an admin user, you can switch different roles within the portal. If you see here, you can change who you are within the portal. So let's say I wanted to, again, change it over to Charlotte. Charlotte's out of town. I can change it over to Charlotte's screen and what she would be able to see. And if you also want to look up invoices by certain criteria, you can do that too. This is also a great way for selecting reports that you want to see. So once all the invoices have been approved, you'll send them over to the ERP system to be approved. And you'll see that here in the batch code here. And that's where I'm going to turn over to Rebecca to explain how it's going to go from Avid Exchange portal to Acumatica. So Rebecca, I'm going to go ahead and turn over controls to you.
All right. Let me choose the proper screen here. Okay, can you see my screen, Gabby?
Yes, we can, Rebecca.
All right. In Acumatica, there is a new menu option, the Avid Exchange, that allows us to pull information that has previously been put in and batched in Avid. And what I'm showing you now is 2 invoices within a particular batch, which is the top one here. The batch has been processed, the batch has been closed, and it's ready to be pulled into the accounting system. In Acumatica, we have the setup screen where there's some mapping criteria that indicates how the fields are going to be mapped to your accounts payable bill. We do import and create AP bills for just AP invoices. We also create AP bills for purchase receipts. And you can choose to automatically release them on import. You can also automatically release the purchase receipt, and we can set the Avid Pay method to, we can set the pay method to Avid Pay. Obviously, we want to control these in here so they would not be controlled within the setup of the module. In Avid Pay, we invoice imports. You can do it through the boxes at the top, or you can do it through the process on the side. So if we go in here, it says the version I'm showing you is 18R2, by the way, which we're currently in certification, getting ready for release. And we load the batches that are out there. This is my batch that was out there. I can open it and verify those are the two that I thought they were there. I can import my batch. Takes me a second. And then it goes into my invoices inquiry. In this screen, it tells me I'm done. Everything worked perfectly. If I wasn't done, it would have given me a cancel button that indicated partially imported and partially canceled, and I can go and find my errors. From this screen, I can go ahead and drill down into my bills. And my bills, this one was strictly an accounts payable bill. And I can drill down into the other one, and this one was a purchase order. So it released my purchase order and allowed me to create a bill for it, and then released both of those bills. This process is very quick, very seamless. If there's any errors, you can go to the configuration screen. You can view the log, and based off of what day you want to do, you can figure out the errors. On this particular day, the remote server, it wasn't activated. I had not logged in. So you can go in through a myriad of different sequences. Then you go back to Avid and maybe change a GL code, or maybe change a branch if the branch wasn't correct, or the vendor, or the amount if the amount doesn't match the amount of the receipt. There are a lot of errors that we provide you on those. The other part of the Avid Exchange interface is for payments. What happens on payments is you go through the check process, and I'm not going to run it. Obviously, the Avid payments, we don't always run it on a live system because we can't pay something on a demo system. But what we have done is we've run a payment through, and it's gone out to Avid. And this tells you that this payment went to Avid by an Avid Pay check. So I processed the payment because my payment method was Avid Pay. I processed it all the way through, and then Avid picked it up as a batch, and I imported into Avid. Now, because I'm on a demo system, Avid voids it. So when I check my status, it comes back as void because Avid has voided it. I can drill into my check, and I can go ahead and void it on here so that my check within Acumatica is also voided. And that will close the process. So all of this is done through an API call, so that you don't have to push and pull any files back and forth. Gabby, it's all yours again.
Thanks, Rebecca. And so, like Rebecca had mentioned, once Avid Exchange has released the payment, you'll actually go back out to your portal, and if everybody can see my screen.
Yes, we can see it.
Perfect. Thanks, Rebecca. You'll go back out to the portal where the payments have been submitted to Avid, and then these are the ones that you're going to submit for approvals. And again, just like the invoices, you can have workflow associated with it, unlimited amounts. So let's just say, again, if anything over 500, it'll get routed to Rebecca for approval, or for just myself. And then you'll come out here and you'll see the invoice that was associated to that payment. Again, these aren't going to match because we are in a demo site, and it's just we can't have live data going back and forth on a payment because we don't want to make any accidental payments. But you can click and drill down on all the detail of all the payments that were submitted back to Avid. Then from there, once they're approved, it will take up to 2 to 3 days for your bank to receive it. It'll come back to the Avid portal as consolidated, and then you can run a reconciliation report on it. So that is the beginning to end from invoice to pay for Avid Exchange. Again, we know currently your current state may be a lot of manual processing, again, with the invoices and scanning and mailing and filing. And with Avid Exchange, we can truly automate that process for you. Again, creating that workflow, visibility, notifications of when invoices have been uploaded. And then on the pay side, again, we have the pay network that we're working with, payment approvals, and then you're getting all of that historical record on your payments and when they've been reconciled with the bank. Okay, well, that is Avid Exchange. There are some reporting functionalities in the portal. Again, you can create an invoice on the fly. We talked about the payment side, and then on the administrative side, you have a lot of flexibility with the system and how many people you can set up, creating organization admins, workflow, adding any kind of vendors to your list, any organizations to your role, and that's something that SWK would work with you on setting that up for you. Now, if there's any questions, Rebecca and I would be happy to answer any questions that we might have.
Awesome, thank you, Gabby. Quickly before we have our Q&A portion of the webinar, if anyone has any additional questions that they think of after, please feel free to contact your customer account manager, or you can email camteam@swktech.com if you don't know who your customer account manager is. And now, without further ado, let's see if there's any questions.
Oh, I see a question. Okay, is there a limited number amount of batches? Other programs limit dollars since the line of credit type item, or does the amount of payment? I'm sorry, Cindy, I'm not really understanding this question. I'm going to reread it. I apologize. Is there a limit of dollar amount of a batch? No, not to my knowledge, and that would actually be a limitation from your bank. Other programs limit the dollar since it is a line of credit type item. No, so what is going to happen is with this, it's not a line of credit that you're setting up. Avid Exchange will directly set up payment methods through your bank account, and then that information will go to a trust account that Avid Exchange has, and then the funds will be pulled through there. Does the payment come directly out of your bank account? So then yes, I just answered my own question. Yes, so what will happen is that amount will be submitted to the trust fund. The trust fund will then be pulled from your bank. And again, that takes about 2 to 3 days. Okay, Cindy, did you have any follow-up questions off my answer? That is, again, how you set it up through your bank. Yes, traditionally it's set up by each individual transaction. I have customers that typically want to see one lump sum, and then some people want it itemized, but right now the way traditionally it would be set up, it would be each invoice that is paid, and it would be one transaction for each payment. Okay, thank you, Cindy. No further questions. Okay, anybody else on the line that has any questions? Okay. Well, again, this is going to be recorded, so you'll receive a copy of this. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to myself or your account manager that you currently work with. If you're familiar with Courtney, please feel free to reach out to Courtney, and we'd love to have a conversation with you. And if there aren't any other questions, Sasha, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to end the webinar. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day.